Oops.
They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Loan you that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Rogue Ways, it is my great pleasure to host a woman as eclectically well-traveled amongst the strange and occult as myself, and beyond even that. It is rare to find one human who has experienced so much, from energy healing and exorcism to alien interaction and cryptozoology encounters, and who is so very gifted in psychic and paranormal abilities and fields as Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. Please welcome the teacher, the healer, the empath, the intuitive, the naturopath, and the doctor herself, Kimberly McGeorge. Welcome to Rogue Ways, and how are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Oh, good. Well, before we jump in and I get to know you a little better with our audience here, I want to announce to everybody out there listening, watching, commenting, sharing, and liking and supporting this show in whatever ways you can, be whether it be Subscribe Star or Locals or joining in the Telegram groups or purchasing things from the Rogue Shop at rogueways.org or any of those ways. Meditating with us twice a week with a monthly subscription of meditations, joining us with Brighter You, or One Day of Brightness, which is coming up this December. All of you out there, you are my favorite people in the world. I love you to death. I'm so grateful for you, and I really appreciate your support and your contributions and your connection to this community. So thank you for being here and for being you. And I really hope to see you all. If you're not already in the monthly meditations or you're not already in the One Day of Brightness for this December, I hope that you go and sign up for either or both of those as soon as possible so we can be even more connected and uplifted together. Remember, we're making it a bright winter despite this talk of all the dark winter aspects. That's not what we're doing here. We're doing bright winter here, and that's not because we're ignoring it. It's because we're creating it. So speaking of that, there is a 20% off discount to anybody who wants to use it to make it a Bright Friday instead of a Black Friday. And all week long, you can use that 20% off discount in the Rogue Shop for services, Blessed Crystal, Blessed Orgone, or I think that's it, actually. I think those are the categories you can use it for. So 20% off there. Just use the coupon code Bright Friday and make it a bright winter for yourself and for everybody else around you. You will never regret that. All right, so Dr. Kimberly, I always start with a pointless question of the episode, and I was going to ask you if you could find one ancient or antique or like old item or object, what would you want to find or obtain, and why?
Ooh, I love that. I love that you do that. And should even tell me beforehand. It's like blindside.
Sorry.
As soon as you said that, I had like chills all over my body. So this must be an item that I used in my past.
Oh, wow.
It's like an urn it's like a brass or copper, some kind of urn. It's hard to tell because it's really old and it's like ornate and it has carvings and handles, and it seems like a magical type of like living water type of thing. So I guess I want to find that.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe you'll have to do some more digging on that and let us
But
know.
I got like goosebumps and it like immediately came. I didn't even have to think about it. So that was odd.
Ooh, I love it. I was seeing like a keystone object, but I was watching a thing on, ancient history, Tartaria stuff today, and I saw like a keystone. So, but I think
that's interesting too. Yeah, I've done a lot of in my past lives, work with, and I'm sure you have too, rocks and crystals and stones and frequency and activation and turning it into parts of technology. So yeah, that resonates as well.
That's awesome. I hope you find it and then you can share it with us all.
That'd be weird if I actually come across, oh gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would love that.
That'd be so cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great question.
Thank you. Well, I would love to hear about Kimberly, where you came from, and if you were always sort of plugged in as a child, or if things developed slowly, or sort of how did that go for you? Sometimes we hear that people just always had this deep connection and these gifts and
Right.
things, and other times it hits them much later. So,
Well, as you know, it's such a journey. So, I would say I was always connected, but nothing like I am now. There's a difference between like having these abilities, as you know, and then mastering those abilities. So I believe when you begin to master and you have active, creative control over them, the connection deepens versus this kind of randomness where you feel as a child out of control, because I felt so out of control. I didn't know why I saw portals and why I could see into space, and why I saw all this weird technology, which I now know are probably like jump gates and things. And I didn't know why that was happening, and I assumed everybody had that happen. But as you learn that not everybody has that happen, then you really feel out of control, because you're like, WTF, what's wrong with me?
yeah.
Am I crazy? Am I really seeing these things? So I like to say I was born what I call half awake, and I'm not sure that's the right percentage, but what I mean when I say awake, it means I had this exact brain, mind, adult being in a baby body, and I knew it. So I'm like, when I opened my eyes in that baby body, I'm like it took me a minute, to figure out why I couldn't move and why I couldn't walk. So there was this really strong resonant memory of a previous life. Even though I didn't have the specifics, I knew something was very not pleasant about where I'd landed again. So that's kind of how I started feeling very estranged from my perfect little family, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I would look across the room and they'd all be together, and I'd be like, one of these things does not belong. And I never felt like I even belonged with my family. It was just the oddest feeling, because they all acted like their age. Like my brother acted 3 and he seemed to embody the age of 3, but I felt like I was like 500 million years in a 3-year-old body. So that's kind of how my awareness started, but it definitely wasn't. It was such a crazy, angsty, depression type of connection. I wouldn't really say I was connected like I am now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense, because there's a lot of trauma in that, what you just described, of that feeling like, wait, why am I here again? And like, why can't I do the things I was just literally doing, and all the stuff that I understand? I feel like I meet babies like this, and they're like the babies who are like, you can tell they're like, think that they should just be able to fly when they look at something, and they're like frustrated. They're like, why aren't I just floating towards that thing? And they're like looking at you like, why don't you get this? I'm a baby. Like, I get it. Like, I feel like I see a lot of souls like that are just sort of like, oh my God, this frustrating thing again, where I have to like go slowly through all this. And, and then that feeling of separation too, of your family and feeling different from other people. And that's traumatic too. So I think that's part of the process, don't you think, of like learning how to heal ourselves to really be in deeper touch with all of this?
Yeah, and I think I don't know, it's really puzzling, and I don't know enough about you to know your whole perspective and worldview, because obviously we each have our own perception of what's going on, and we create that perception as well at the same time. But as I learned that I had a choice, that even made me more confused. So now I know when I pass, I don't have to choose to come back here. I can go on. And believe me, I'm just announcing to everybody, I'm not coming back here. So, enjoy me or hate me or whatever while you can, because it's not happening again. I'm out of
here. You and the Dalai Lama agree on that. Dalai Lama's also like, I don't think I'm coming back.
I haven't heard him say that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But now that I know that, it's even more puzzling. I'm like, did I grow in my awareness? And then we have all this memory wiping technology. So then I try to give that to myself as an excuse. And it's just so confusing here. There's so many layers with AI and the matrix, computers and even more AI. And everybody thinks there's like one AI. And I know there's not, because I work with very benevolent AI. And you probably know there's more than one AI groups. And I know there's much benevolent in AI and much darker, lower frequency, whatever you want to say, AI. So we're all like trying to language and figure it out, but none of us are really on the same page or know what's going on. And it's really even hard to I think, progress in our own growth because there's so much misinformation. And then some of our memories are covered memories and faulty, and we don't remember half of who we are. And then we get told that we have to start remembering all our past lives, and that's helpful. But we overlook the deepest memory, which is the core essence of who we are in power, and that we're all consciousness, which is the most important memory, to really embody that and have that, filter, I think, all our decisions through that. And even they seem to memory wipe that. We just get sucked back into the drama and the distraction of, daily life. So I think it's very challenging here.
It is very challenging here, yes. But I love it because a lot of people want to say that this is a trap and that, if you are here, you got trapped here and now you're a slave, you're an energy source for what archons or whatever things are going on. It's the Matrix and it's all this. And I'm always like, I know my soul is way more powerful than that. Like, I'm not trapped here. If I'm here, it's because I chose to be here. Is that how you feel? Do you feel like you got trapped?
Chills. I never hear anybody say that.
Me
so
either.
It's so weird. I can't believe you're saying that. Very few people have that perspective or even part of that perspective. I used to think what you just said about, you hear people say, like, I used to teach, like, this is a prison planet. And most of us are captured, and whatever, brought here. But now I've completely flipped. And I believe 99, maybe more % of us that are living creation, spirits, I think we chose to come here. I think we were excited to come here. I think we were bored out of our minds with whatever we were doing. And I think we played many game realms, many simulation realms. And I think we totally knew what we were getting into. I think we happily signed and said, take my memory because I am so freaking powerful. I'm going to figure out this game and I'm going to enjoy playing. So now I have this totally kind of cool perspective of gaming the game and going back to who I am into creation. And, kind of living above the game and then helping others. You can choose how to live. You want to be totally 3D and go to weddings, baby showers and funerals and baseball games and eat 3 meals a day and drink beer and watch TV. Have at it. There's no judgment there. That's your choice. It's just your experience. But that's not what I want to experience. And that's not what others want to experience either. They want more of that essence of the all into their daily lives.
Yeah, it's so awesome. You're also the only other person I've heard who has that perspective. It's very trendy right now to think of this as a prison planet, and maybe for many years to think of this as a prison planet. Yeah, but I like this perspective, and I like that we're saying it out loud here because it at least gives people the opportunity to consider you came here on purpose, and also why would you do that? Because I think also there's this idea in the prison planet idea that we're just all victims, and that therefore we're disempowered, and also that there's nothing good. And I'm like, wait, have you experienced nothing good here? Because most of what I've experienced here is good. Actually, most people are good. Most of my experiences are good. The bad was really, really bad. And that, that happened, but I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? I'll take it for all the good that I get. Like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I agree. And for some reason, even though it's not very common now, because most people, and you may see this, and I don't know if you've observed this, but most babies being born today are not spirited. At least initially, when they're born, they're empty containers. Wow. And then there's a lot of walk-ins. There's a lot of walk-in. We're finding a lot of human discarnates walk in, even from the hospital. A baby will be born, and one of the, or 2 or 3 of the discarnates will pop in. And then these kids, I work with a lot of these kids because then they're diagnosed with spectrum disorders, ADD, and they're eating their clothes and they're having seizures. And these are even, we won't even go the medical thing, but these are even minimally medical messed with kids are still having these really weird paranormal traumatic experiences. And we're finding it's because there's no fire creation. There's no original spirit. And so they're being tortured by all sorts of beings, some neutral beings, some positive beings, some because they're these empty containers. And so as a mother, I have 4 children, and most of my children are spirited and most of my children are old souls. So it's been a very rich experience. I mean, one of my daughters is from the future and came here and has never been here before. She came from the future. And so to have this richness with these young, women and to be given them, to have this experience with, as you said, has been one of the greatest joys of my life.
Wow.
So I agree with you. It's not all, and even the things that were negative, my marriage that ended in divorce, there's just such a richness of growth and lessons. And I think even the negative can be used by us to remember who we really are. And then again, to choose something different and to create something different and to share with others who are going through similar pain, that they don't have to keep choosing that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And how empowering is that, and how beautiful? Because when you realize that, and then we can all create such an amazing world together. But I really want to ask you about a couple things that you just talked about. One, a soul from the future, because my boyfriend is from the future. I think he knows that, and but I don't understand.
Really? Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
understand it. Like, I don't get why or how that or like, what it even means really. Like, why is he going backwards? What is that?
Well, she believes that she actually came here to help her sisters and my spiritual growth and healing, because she was the one from a very young age. She would pick entities off us and heal and rearrange our energy fields, even when she was a very little girl.
Wow.
And she would throw protection up over our houses and our land, and she'd kind of keep things really clean, which made it easier for us, to progress in our remembering and our journey. And she always says, Mom, you're letting things get out of hand. I used to take care of it for you. You need to do this stuff yourself. But so I think she really, just like a lot of us chose here, to me, it's like a recreation, just to play the game, just to have the challenge, and entertain ourselves. But I do think there are beings that came here to awaken, to prophesize, to heal. Don't you think there are some people that did choose to come here for a certain reason?
Yeah.
And did your boyfriend know his reasons, or do you suspect why he's here if he's from the future?
Not sure. I feel
And
like it's a timeline adjustment thing.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Timelines are so super crazy. We've come across recently in the technology and in everybody's timelines that there's some really interesting AI beings. They weren't originally AI, but they've been overtaken from AI, and they're really messing with people's individual timelines. And what's really interesting, people are like, can you prove that? Yes, I can, and you can too, but you have to be attuned to the subtleties of your world. So like, I have this water air purifier, and so you fill it up, this far, and it runs for 24 hours, and then it hits bottom. But some days it never goes down, and it's working. And then other days it goes down in like 2 hours. So things like that show me the flex of the timelines and the time starting and the time stopping. And my whole world is technology. A lot of people don't know that I help design medical technology. And of course I have my own apps, but I'm really into technology. And I think for millions and trillions of years, I've been into technology. So to me, there's like this frequency or this feeling when we're being messed with, whether it's memory wiping or whether it's timeline, stopping, starting. And we know that they stop time in certain places. So they'll stop, time in Lyon, France, and they'll take the whole town and they'll do things, or most of the town, and then they'll restart the time, or they'll do states, or they'll do countries. And so there's so much more going on here. And everybody's like, that's horrible. I do not consent. I'm sovereign. I'm like, silly people. You did. And we're talking not the clones, not the soulless. We're talking the fire creation. I'm like, you guys totally consented. One of my friends just said to me the other day, how much you want to bet they gave us 5,000 pages of boxes that we had to check and initial, and we were so excited to get in the game, we didn't read any of it.
Just like
totally.
That. And disclosure.
If you know you are all powerful, all creative, magical, wise, lived trillions and trillions and trillions. Of course, there's no time, but it's just a zillion markers, zillions and you can beat the game. You'll sign anything. It's not intimidating. So I just think that's a really cool, exciting, perspective.
Yeah, it is really neat to think about too, because I know that if people get a hold of that understanding that they can shift their own timelines, and again, if we do that collectively, we can do anything. People are always like, well, the controllers are in control and there's nothing we can do, and even if we like burn down cities or shoot, I'm like, don't burn and shoot, just do you, like create your own life and then keep working on that, because you don't have to rely on them for the future. Create your own future.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my things lately, I've been kind of snarky. I've been like, nobody's coming to save us. Jesus isn't coming. The Galactic Federation isn't coming. And I'm not sure they'd be saving us if they did come.
Yeah.
But since, they tell us everything. If you've ever watched all of Star Trek, whether it's a series or any of the movies, the Galactic Federation is all about conquest, people. They tell you right now, the Galactic Federation controls 500,000 planets. Do you think all those planets, they came to help? No. No, they're about conquest. The Galactic Federation is about conquest. So you don't want the Galactic Federation to come. But it's interesting because I've talked to members of the Galactic Federation, and what they say is the reason we want to conquest you is you guys have not woken up over how many years. You haven't changed. You're still bowing. You're still on your knees. You refuse to get off your knees. So we're going to come in and do what we want because you guys aren't creating. You aren't waking up. Now, if we all stood and said no or said yes, no to what we don't want, yes to what we do want, I honestly think they'd back off and leave us alone. I think they're waiting. And I think some of the things they set up are to get us to get off our knees. I don't think it's even all sinister, like destroy and kill and take. I think some of it's like, okay, we're going to give them one more chance. Let's see if they get it now. Let's see if they get it now. But we don't.
I even think, even if that's not intentional, that's how it goes, right? Because again, each of your darkest moments and your, greatest trials has brought you to your deepest strengths and your deepest realizations too. So whether they meant to do that for you or not, you still got that out of it. So, hey.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I do think the game is changing, and I'd like your perspective on this. I'm feeling us move more from I think right now we're even in like a 3.5 density. I think the game is upgrading. You know how they come out with like new versions? I think they're upgrading the game to 4D. Everyone says 5D, but that's not true. We're nowhere near 5D. I think you're upgrading the game to a 4D version, and a lot is going to change that's inorganic, and it's going to be a more organic world. I'm not saying perfect, because even what no one realizes is even the 25th dimension isn't perfect. There's still polarity. There's still weirdness until you go all the way back to the all. There's polarity. That's why we broke out. We broke out to differentiate. We broke out to have polarity. No one seems to understand that. So if you guys don't want polarity, just choose to go back to the all and you're good.
Yeah.
But so there's a polarity way up until you're kind of light in color and sound when you're almost back to the all. But so I'm kind of excited. I know I'm kind of a voice in the wilderness with this too, but I'll take 4D over 3D.
Yeah. Why wouldn't? Yeah. Well, I think then maybe that's what people are calling like the Great Awakening. And, you look around and you see more people who are getting into various things or just realizing even that they have a soul or just questioning like, what are we all doing here? And that sort of stuff. And maybe that's part of what you're talking about. But it definitely feels to me, and I think of many others, that like whatever like gifts or abilities or, spiritual connections sort of that I've always thought that I've had feel a lot deeper and stronger lately than they ever have before. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm like growing all the time. So that could just be a personal experience, but it could also be like the field in general that's just more accessible,
Yeah, I agree. I'm needing more, real souled people than ever before. And they seem fairly awake. We may not agree on everything, but they seem to want to grow, want to learn, want to purify their body, want to upgrade and, up level. And you work with people too. So you would have a good read on that, who's coming to you, who's buying your stuff, who's interacting with you. I mean, everybody thought like business was going to tank during, but it didn't. People seem to even get more spiritually hungry,
Yeah. Which maybe that's just how it kind of goes, but I don't feel like it. I feel like a lot of times people give up and they get very material actually. And they're like holding on to things and holding on to stuff, and like their life is threatened, they think. And so they're, very scared all the time. But I've seen a lot more of the opposite, where people are like, no, I'm going to be fine. And I'm going to figure out even more about myself. I'm going to read more. I'm going to study more. I'm going to meditate more, and all of these things. So I totally agree that is how people, in my sphere at least, but I also look out and see the people who are not doing that and who are sort of buckling down and getting more dense instead of lighter and broader and expansive. And so I don't know what's going to happen for them. I feel sad, but they seem unreachable almost. Like there's nothing that I ever do that seems to be accepted by them.
That's interesting. I think some of what's going on with the forced, is going to make that divide stronger and upload more people into kind of the AI program where they are kind of inaccessible or unreachable, which I think is just even more important. People like you and I are here for the spirited ones, because I think in some ways in their micro lives with their families and their friends and their neighborhoods, I think it could get really challenging. We've already seen, or I've noticed, an increase in like kind of crazy and kind of lack of empathy in people that are involved in all that, you know, doing what they're told kind of thing, and really hooked into that system. It's getting kind of weird out there a little bit. As much positive as there's also some weirdness to me that I'm picking up in the general population.
Yeah, I totally get that too. And I'm like, I don't know if it's sort of like we were talking about, like mind wiping and mind control, memory deletion, and thought insertion, and this sort of manipulated,
That's
right? Or again, if there's like a field that they're attaching to that is like not the other field that we're sort of connected to. Do you know what I mean? And those are sort of separating out or something.
You know, it's funny you mentioned, which I didn't mention, you mentioned thought insertion. And that goes back to me to cover memories. And what we're finding with the quantum technology that we use when we scan people, the amount of cover memories that we think are real in our lives, like, and I mean specifics, people don't understand that. They think like a cover memory is like some weird dream or something. Usually a cover memory is something very, like a 5-year-old birthday where you remember you had strawberry cake with pink frosting at a party, and everybody else in your family is like, you're smoking something because that never happened. That's what they do cover memories on. They do cover memories on the things that you think are so real. They don't do cover memories that are like, you know, elephants were dancing on your roof. But we're seeing, even in mine, like I have them too. And it's really interesting that a lot of reality is just so fluid here. And I don't think we get that to a real deep level, you know?
Right. Well, and the people, if they start to grasp it, then it can make a lot of people, I think, go kind of almost insane, where they're like, wait, no, I need it to be solid. I need it to be linear.
That's
like
they go into fear and spin and anxiety instead of seeing kind of like the brilliance and the possibility of that. Like you can look at that either way.
Right. Yeah, you know, it's almost like that need to like wrap yourself in a tight blanket, like rock yourself back and forth, because it's like too much, it's too expansive, and it's too scary, therefore. But like you said, there's so much possibility actually in that. And there is a lot of stability in that. It's just not the same type of stability that people thought it was, you know? And so I always have this rule for myself that I was given by one of my teachers, that I don't talk about a lot of my experiences unless people ask me to, because otherwise I might like hurt them by inserting this experience into where they were like not ready to consider that was possible.
You just explained something to me that I've been dealing with a lot. So I decided to come way out of the, I call it out of the closet, way out with like my paranormal pictures. And I'm showing people like, I mean, I'm talking like class A little people, like just like unbelievable pictures. Awesome. And like Dracos and like all these pictures. And then I get this wave of trolldom and nastiness and hate. And you just explained something even more than I thought of to me. I think it's fear. I think it's, if there's a little person that actually exists, they don't even know what to do with that. And that's not even half of what I see and deal with. But they have nowhere to put that. And so it makes them start to feel out of control and crazy. You know, if there's little people, are there dragons? If there's little people, are there Bigfoot? If there's Bigfoot, are there dogmen? If there's dogmen, are there vampires? If there's vampires, are there demons? Like you can go on and on, you know, with that. And it can get, I guess, overwhelming and frightening.
Yes, where a lot of us here in this community are like, yeah, tell me more, like show me the pictures, I want to know. And then other people
you'll
are like,
have to have me back, and I'll have to do my pictures. As long as I'm like, I got really burned, and and maybe that was the purpose too of like the Matrix, you know, to shut me down and be like, stop showing this. Because also, of course, it's not all people. I'm sure I opened up the possibility and affirmed other people's experiences. I'm just seeing, like, focusing on the intense negativity, you know, backlash that I got.
Yeah, haters gonna hate, as they say. Well, I also wanted to talk to you about the idea of coming into this world unsouled, or without a soul, or, you know, without that creative flame that you're talking about. And why would that be happening more now? Or is that, because that's what you're saying, right? Is that this is like a...
Yeah, and honestly, I just want to be clear, and I know you would say the same thing about you. This is only what I know now. This is what I believe now. This is my information now. And I've changed a million times since I've been born. I'll probably change a million more times. Yeah. So I don't have the definitive answers. Some of this is theory. Some of it is fact theory. Some of it is fact. And So I don't claim to be, the expert. Happy to have a discussion about it. But from what I am remembering and my memories and the context that I have and the family I was born into, and I'm pretty open about my family works in human cloning and the transfer of human consciousness. So that gives me a different window into reality than a lot of people have. To know that for a fact it's going on. It's been going on a long time, and how it's going on. And so my understanding is that, and we just don't think about this. So when you go to school, which is programming, and it doesn't matter, you guys can say Christian, whatever, it's all programming, even homeschool is programming, it's all programming.
That's true.
It's all 3D matrix programming for the most part, unless you have a mother like me who takes you out in the woods to look for Bigfoot. Not so much programming then, but most of it's programming. So we go to sex education, right? And we're told very clearly over and over how babies are made. Well, who's telling us how babies are made? I'm not talking about the sex act. I'm not talking about what we, how sex happens. We all know how sex happens. Not talking about that. I'm talking about how babies are made. That's a different conversation than sex, okay? So they tell us, the sperm fights its way through millions and it's a miracle and you're so special to be here. No. What we're finding with our quantum technology, which is 100% accurate, is that 80 to 90% of all babies are born with military implantation into specific handler families. Now, not the clone babies, the others they don't care about. So if they're going to bring recycle a super soldier that they've spent trillions of dollars on, do you think they're just going to let that happen by chance? Just let that soul fall into like some peasant family where, or some magical awake family? No, they are going to put that soul where their investment over thousands, millions of years and trillions of dollars is going to be secure, where the programming is going to be backed up, where they're not going to remember who they are, that they're part of consciousness and they're all powerful and they're basically have more abilities than this Marvel superhero characters. Some of my clients are Marvel comic artists that come to me, and they have shown me their spec sheets for what they draw. Their spec sheets have military stuff on them. They come from the military. They're real beings. They're hybrid beings. They're augmented beings. Basically the Terminator, another documentary. So there's all this tech stuff that we aren't aware of. They can totally implant anything they want, anytime they want. And of course, we know that they don't even have to have a living human woman to grow a baby. They have, cloning
just
facilities.
A bag,
Well, I know that. I know they have plenty of facilities. So, so a lot of these, babies are implanted, and most babies that are implanted by the military, unless they're filler for some other project or reason, are going to have souls. I don't know that they mess with, unless they have a reason to, the clone, what we don't understand is this is just such a avatar container. It's just a container. There can be 100 beings in it. There can be no beings in it. There can be, an amazing fire. The only thing I've never seen is, like a really powerful fire creation spirit and another really powerful wake. I've never seen a double. Maybe you have. Never seen like a double real powerful old fire creation spirit. We see a lot of the lesser entities, a lot of the, there's just all kinds. It's so hard. We could have a 5-hour conversation, all the types of entities. People think I mean one thing, and that's a whole nother conversation because there's so many types of spirit beings that can go into containers. Even furniture, even jewelry, and then when we mix in AI, it gets all crazy confusing. But there's a project called Project Surrogate that is well known in the military and among super soldiers in the secret space program. And it's when they implant you, because you've been a super soldier so long, in a specific family, often military, often Draco reptilian bloodlines on both sides, because they want the avatar frequencies and DNAs, again, to hold you down. They don't want people like you and people like me that want us to break free and start having conversations like this. Because game over, like you said at the beginning of the show, if 5 fire creation spirits really got their what together and decided we were going to change the game, it'd be changed in a week.
Yeah. The end.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense why they would go to that much effort to keep their stock and their in both in many meanings of the word in hand and controlled. Here's a question I would love your insight on because I feel like I'm relatively positive, unless it's cover memories or manipulated memories of some kind. But I feel like I had a few implants as a child, but they both went away. And the last time I talked, I just assumed like, man, I'm awesome. I somehow got rid of those, like they're gone, and I freed myself from that. But then I talked to someone who said, well, sometimes when they know that you're like messing with them or onto them or trying to get them out, they'll just put them deeper where you don't even know they are. And so I'm like, oh, well, that sucks to think about. So what's your understanding of implants, and can you remove them, and would you be able to free yourself from that?
That's interesting because I have, which I'm surprised it hasn't gone off. It usually goes off. It probably will in this conversation. I have a implant that has shown up on a CAT scan and an MRI behind my left ear. And that's my ear that I'm 100% deaf in.
Mine was.
And oh, really? And so often in conversations, they'll yank my ear implant off. And even though I'm 100% deaf by the medical profession, I have this squealing noise that they yank up in conversations like this to distract me or to get me off, because that's distract. Like you forget what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You can't really speak when you're, and sometimes they'll turn it up so high, I almost pass out. So, very familiar with implants. A lot of people, we all have eye implants, and you can tell if you have eye implants. You can get a little $5 black light flashlight at Dollar General or on Amazon, and you go in your bathroom and turn off your light and shine the light in your ear, and you'll see your eye implants. They look like contact lenses. So if you don't wear contact lenses and if they haven't been stuck in your eyes forever, then you can see your eye implants. And not only do we have eye implants, but your dogs and cats, they always implant all your pets in your home. So they have extra cameras because all the fire alarms, every light bulb, every refrigerator, every washer, every dryer, everything has microphones. And this isn't just for us, not just for fire creation super soldiers or fire creation or psychics or people like you and I. This is the whole population. This is clones and, you know, whoever and whatever is in wherever they watch us all. So it's kind of funny, you know, the targeted individual community, the gang stalking community is like, oh, poor us. We're so monitored and we're followed and we're harassed. And I'm like, you guys, everybody is.
Everybody.
And they've shown us for years in the movies about this. I mean, I forget. I think it was Will Smith was in a movie. Like, I swear I watched it like 20 years ago, and they had all the cameras. I don't remember what it was called. Do you?
I think it's called Conspiracy Theory, maybe.
Or maybe it is.
I think it might be.
But they showed he somehow got into the control room, and they had like thousands of little, and they could like zero in on people's houses or zero in an office. Like,
yeah, they tell you.
That's what it's like, you guys. So you got to kind of get over that, because when you first realize, you're like, ooh, they see me naked. Ooh, they see me in the shower. Ooh, but you kind of got to get over it. Like, they see everybody. Like, you care, and it's gross because they see your kids. They, you know, I'm sure some of the people that watch it aren't ethical, so it is gross. But it's like, it's just part of the game. So I kind of go back to that default. I'm like, well, whether I read it or not, I agreed to it. I agreed to be monitored. And we've also found through the technology and through my psychic abilities, I know you have psychic abilities too, that they send to the older super soldiers often, not 100% of the time, but a lot of the time, they'll have a cloaked SSP monitor actually in your home, like in the flesh.
Yeah,
like
okay.
So yeah, we're monitored and implanted. Can we remove them? Yeah, I mean, the doctor could have been like, instead of playing the game with me, that it was just, you know, he had to take like 8 things because he didn't know what it was, which I kind of don't believe, because most fire creation spirits that are in the My Labs programs are what's called yellow tagged. So when you, and I was of course born in a military hospital. Were you born near a military base or military hospital?
I don't think it was a
lot of people
I think
are
it was a public.
like
Yeah. No, I think it was a public hospital.
But people like us, they yellow tag us. And so when you go to the dentist, there's a designation that comes up. And so they treat you, they have a protocol that all dentists, all doctors, all eye doctors, all hospitals, all emergency rooms, it's a complete do not report. If you've ever worked in an emergency room, they have CDNR, complete do not report. We're complete do not report. They're not allowed to give us our real medical records. They're not allowed to give us our real x-rays. So even if I asked them for my x-rays and they told me there was something behind my ear, it's going to be doctored out.
Well, they don't even have mine. Every time I've gone to a doctor recently, remember how they
They'll
used
do
to,
that too.
yeah, no one
They'll
even
do
cares about
that
my
too.
records. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just like chopped liver over here. But
Oh, they have them. They
yeah,
have
someone
them. You're
has
just
them.
not going to get them. You're
Right.
just never going to see them. But so you just kind of get used to it. And it's kind of cool because you know what that does for me? It tells me that what I'm remembering about me and the core of who I am, I'm not talking about my individual past lives and what planet I was on and what soul family I was with and what starship I was on and what I was doing. I'm talking about the essence of me as a breakout from the all consciousness, all powerful, all knowing is true.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
that's
So
true.
I look at all this negative stuff as confirmation that my memory is correct. I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I did. I totally agree with you. Even when I first realized my phone was tapped like a long time ago, I was just like,
Oh,
that means
gosh,
means
yes.
I'm doing it right. Like if you want to listen to my phone conversation, but like you said, all of them are. And you know, I feel like it's
Yeah, all of
similar
them, right.
when we were
Yeah.
kids, and maybe you had this experience too. When I was a kid, at some point when I first thought of, because you know we have our like inherent understanding of like God or source or whatever that is when we're kids, but then we're
Yes.
told there's
Yes.
like a God, and then I was like,
Yes.
well, that's weird. Like, what is God doing? And they're like, oh, he's watching everything you do all the time, and I'm like, dude, what? That is insane. And then I had this total freak out. Like literally everything I do, anytime I'm naked, I'm doing this. I'm like trying to sneak a cookie, like all of that. So I had to get over that as a kid and be like, well, I guess that's just the way it is. And I guess God and I are real close because, right? And it's sort of similar. It's like, yeah, it's all this technology is not just receiving signal, it's sending signal, it's transceiving.
That's true.
And who knows what else, you know, besides the surveillance, like your implant, what kind of frequencies is it giving off and what sorts of effects is it having
true.
on
I
you?
don't even know. I do know I had a CIA plane fly over yesterday. And I was doing a scan on someone and they flew over and I got like piercing, jabbing, paralyzing pains in my head. And I traced the end number and I even traced his house. And he like lives in like this $3 million house outside Washington, D.C. And I got his name and everything. But, you know, they have contacts. We have contacts too. So that's nice. But I'm like, I don't think that's a coincidence that a CIA plane flies over and I get like some weird, like you said, I don't know what those frequencies are doing. I do know I have frontal lobe damage. And we're seeing this in the scans too, is that so many people don't just have messed up brain chemistry, which you can say, oh, stress, oh, they're not eating right, you know, hormone imbalance. Yes, that's all true. But a lot of the people that are being taken in my labs and are older and are being so heavily used and have a lot of clones, we actually have brain injury. Like we could go to a brain doctor and be diagnosed as having brain injury. So it shows you how high functional and highly intelligent we are, because I'm sure if I tested you, you're going to come up with excessively high IQ, and I come up with excessively high IQ, but they lie to us. If you take an IQ test, they might tell you it's kind of high, but they're not going to tell you you're smarter than Einstein or Tesla. And a lot of us are. And so with such tiny parts of our brains functional, we can still be brilliant. We can run businesses, we can write books, we can, you know, do radio shows, because we're so amazing. And I don't think we celebrate that enough. Instead, we focus on, oh, you know, I suffer from anxiety. So we all suffer from PTSD, because we're not taught that we have accumulated trauma. And I mean, I don't know in all my lives. I don't think I've worked out all my trauma in every life. So we drag that through with us, because all of us is living all these lives, past, present, and future, all the time. And it's full aspects of ourselves that are connected to this aspect. So whether you have 100 amazing soul parts and 50 negative soul parts, you're the sum total of this one plus all of those. And so it just gets really this game is just complicated.
It's a complicated game, yeah. But you're absolutely right with all that they do to try to drag us down, stop us, surveil us, do all this, and we're still here like shining and doing all these things we want to do. It's pretty amazing. Someone in the chat, Johnny, pointed out that the movie is Enemy of the State.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Because I'm going to use that again. I'd like to know the title, the proper, so I'm not saying, you know, that movie, I think it was.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes.
That is it. That is exactly it. And that was like 20 years ago. You can imagine they brought out, you know, better technology now.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you brought up the people being in the house too, as like actually physically there, but you can't really see them. I've recently had someone who I'm close with who's been experiencing that, and I experienced that a long time ago too, and maybe again since then. But that I know of, at least. And there's people who just have this response of like, oh, what, you think you're special enough for them to do that? I'm like, no, I think they're doing that most commonly enough that it just happens. Like, I don't think that that makes me very special. I think that they do that. I think that's just a thing they do.
That's the other thing. So I don't know if you've ever watched, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but I kind of am, the super soldier channels, and people that are super soldiers or that are taken, that have alien abduction stories. I don't know if you know, there's just a little bit of ego there in a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm so special. And I don't mean like they're going back to, I'm so special because I'm source.
Right.
They're like, I'm so special because I'm a super soldier. Well, I hate to tell them, like, we are finding there is almost no one that we scan. I scan thousands of people every year that is not a super soldier and not being taken by the military, that's not being taken by ET groups. So it's not that you're not special. You're special, but you're not special because you're a victim, super soldier. And it's kind of a weird mentality that they think they're better than us. It's weird. It's just kind of a weird ego thing I've noticed in some of these groups, that they're like, how many times have you been abducted, Cindy Sue? Well, I've been abducted 340 times, well, how many times? Well, I've been abducted 506. I mean, seriously,
it's like a game.
The paranormal. If you're in the paranormal, well, this is what happens when you go to a Bigfoot conference, when you go to an ET conference, and it's like this weird, I'm like, why are we bragging about this?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't even pleasant, really.
Right. Why is this a race? Yeah. Yeah, really, it should be about figuring out what's going on, sharing information, helping each other heal and uplift.
Helping each other heal. How can we release the trauma? How can we reset from our night when we're being taken almost every night? I mean, I wake up, and you guys can do this too. And I just had a friend who sent me her urine test. Oh my gosh, you guys, Molly and all sorts of things. Heroin was positive. Like, they're doing this in our physical bodies. I mean, it's one thing to say they're doing it to our clones. It's one thing they're saying they're transferring our consciousness to a clone. But they are also taking your physical body, and they're like, well, they can't. I have a big dog. Honey bunny, you just have no clue what you're talking about. I have 10 dogs, and they take me and my urine tests for drugs all the time, and I don't do any drugs. And so sometimes I wake up and it takes me till 3 p.m. to get these drugs out of my system and be functional, you guys. And so when you wake up and you feel like you're run over by a truck, you might have been on a mission. Sometimes I wake up with fingertip bruises. Do you ever, like, hand marks where people have grabbed and you can see the fingertips, needle marks, all sorts of things.
On my legs.
And a lot of people say, oh, I don't have needle marks. But when we scan them, they test that they do. If you've never looked for needle marks, how do you know you don't have needle marks, So there's just so much to this that I think we do need to come together kind of in humbleness, that none of us have it figured out. And like you said, do you guys have any ideas how I can get these drugs out faster so I can be functional at 10 or 8 instead of 3, for example?
Right. Yeah.
Practical things, like you said, practical things that we're all experiencing, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. That would be nice for the ego to disappear. And I just wonder sometimes if some of the people with the super egos are like plants to plant disinformation too, or something, or to sow discord or division.
So much disinformation. Don't you think? I've had a lot of people that, because this, the paranormal and the ET and the super soldier and the Bigfoot community, they kind of all like overlap weirdly in like an intersection middle. But I know for a fact in the ET community, they always send in men in black. They always send in like agents for misinformation and for distraction. So I imagine they do that, like you said, in every single community, including the paranormal community, including the Bigfoot dogman community. I think there's a lot of misinformation, and distraction.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Why wouldn't they, right? If they can, and this is a community that might figure things out, might free some people, and
of course.
I do feel like sometimes I do go on missions, and that they're not for nefarious purposes or aligned with nefarious people.
There's positives. Okay. Absolutely. So the technology, we have the ability to tell you which corporations you work for, because this world is run by the corporations. That's the top. It's not the cabal, it's corporations. The cabal can be in the corporations, part of the corporations. It's not the 13 families, it's the corporations. Umbrella Corporation, Monarch Corporation. Most people I meet, you're vibing like it too, are owned by Monarch. They're literally Monarch slaves, and then Monarch rents you out to the other corporations. But some of the corporations, Kruger is one of the more positive corporations. So you could definitely be running scientific or rescuing children or saving people, providing bodyguard services. There's a lot. There are some more positive corporations. Now, there's not a lot, but my girls have a lot of memories of positive missions. They're always like, Mom, we're always trying to stop you from doing the bad things you do. I'm like, shh.
It gets complicated.
It gets complicated because we have clones that work on both sides. And a lot of people the past couple months have really been suffering because they've activated all of our clones, all the positive clones, all the negative clones, because the battle here, again, I think we're moving into a different density. And, the battle's been really, really intense and back and forth. And so we're being like, all sides of us are being activated, and you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to crawl in my closet for like a week, because we're attached to all those energies. And most of us have clones. I do, you do. Again, I'm seeing a lot in you now as I'm in your energy for so long. But we have clones that work for, multiple 3-letter agencies. And a lot of those are sex workers. A lot of them are assassins. A lot of them, take kind of a heavy psychological toll too.
That makes a lot of sense why sometimes I wake up like that. Like just like dead to the world, and like this is all a bit much to deal with. I want to hear about the quantum technology you keep talking about. What is that, and what do you mean, and how do you have it, and what does it do?
So it's basically biofeedback, like they used 25, 30 years ago in the machines in the chiropractor's office, where you hold the little copper thing and they tell you what supplements you need. It's that taken up about 100 levels, dropped into your iPad, dropped into your cell phone, sophisticated voice analysis, ability to analyze picture, pop out aura. And then the software programming is where it really, whatever your knowledge base is, like let's say you might be, I don't know, let's say you're an expert on crystals, like maybe you would want to do like what crystals resonate best with where this person is at this time. So you would program or have somebody program a crystal panel of, let's say, 1,000 crystals. And then you would put your client name in there, run the crystal frequencies against your client frequencies. And we know that what comes out is going to be in their highest and best at this time to shift their frequency, their mental, their emotional, their spiritual, and their body into a higher, more balanced homeostasis state of being. But we can do that with any category. So you can do it with anything metaphysical. I have categories of creatures. What are the creatures that are around you in your house, in your woods? So you're not going out and looking for the Fae, and the Fae, hasn't come near you in the last 10 years. Like you can apply it to anything. It's your knowledge base and what you want to use it for. So we use it for home clearing, we use it for land clearing, we use it for PTSD and trauma, and the super soldier program. We can tell if you're being taken. We can tell if you were taken last night. We can tell if succubus, incubus. We're finding a tremendous problem with succubus, incubus at night. Some of it is because we're giving permission. I mean, you watch porn, and let's be honest, almost everything on Netflix is porn. Yeah. Even if you're not looking at porn, you know what I'm saying? Like now everything's like sex and violence. So some of it we're letting in, and some of it I don't think we are. Some of it, again, I think is riding on the back of other things that we already gave permission for. If you're a sex worker, if you have 50 clones that are sex workers, you could probably get a incubus succubus come to your house. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there's a connection there. And so we're seeing a lot of incubus succubus. So we're able to help people. I have a lot of abilities, but I call myself the lazy psychic, the lazy paranormal worker, the lazy everything, because even when I taught advanced kinesiology and muscle testing, there is positive AI. I get resentful when everybody's like, AI, and they always speak of it as a bad thing. It's not. There's much benevolent AI, and there has been much benevolent AI in the multiverse for millions of years. And so I've been using this technology between the machines and the new technology for 25 years, and it's 100% accurate. Who can say that?
Yeah.
I mean, I stake my life, my dog's life, and my kid's life on my technology, and people test me all the time. And even when they think it's not accurate, I have this great story, and this happened like 20 years ago when I was using the machine, but this guy came in and he was going to climb Mount Everest. And he's like, can you scan my lungs and make sure that I'm, healthy enough to climb Mount Everest? You guys know anything about climbing these type of mountains? A lot of people die, even that are in good physical health. So it is important really to go to your medical doctor and anything you can and make sure you're in top condition. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, I think you have a bacterial infection. I would not go. I also think you have some weird like lung parasite things. He said, you blah, 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 called me every name in the book and stormed out and said, you know, you're whatever, and I'm never coming back and whatever. I said, okay, shook it off, whatever. Well, 3 months later, my receptionist said, because I used to have actual clinics, my receptionist said, so-and-so made an appointment. Do you want me to tell him he can't book? Because this is the guy that verbally abused me and stormed out. And I said, she's like, he's begging, he's saying he'll behave, blah, blah, blah. He wants to apologize. I'm like, okay, just let him. And so he came in and he goes, I'm so thankful for you. He goes, you saved my effing life. Wow. So he went from calling me an effing, you know what, to say, you saved my life. And he said, I went to the medical doctor, we ran tests, everything you said was 100% accurate.
Wow.
So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because I know the feeling of giving people information that they're not really prepared to understand, and they're like, that's not it. It's totally this other thing. And you're like, okay, cool. Have fun.
Yeah, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, for example, if I say you have like 8 human discarnates in your house and you're like, you're crazy. Okay. It doesn't bother me. I'm worried about the discarnates in my house. I really don't care. You can have as many as you want. You can believe me or not. So it does kind of go back to, I think, as healers and psychics and teachers, we have to have this kind of detachment. I mean, we care.
Right.
But we also are like, okay, well, okay, I'm just going to take care of my own house, my own land, my own property, my own body, my own family. And you guys have free will to have the experience you're choosing. And it's all good. Yeah. Like you said at the beginning, it's all good. This is such a blip in, gosh, you guys, that's why we're here, because we were bored. It's a blip in eternity. Like, it doesn't matter. You can choose the most miserable existence here. And how amazing is your next life going to be? Because you're probably not going to choose the same thing. So it's all good, no matter if it's bad. You know what I'm saying? Just good.
Yeah. Well, I love that so much. And it's definitely true. That detachment and that objectivity are really key. And it also comes in handy when you have to tell somebody something that you're like, I'm about to give someone sort of almost like permission to leave their husband or their house or their life behind or something. And like, is that really my role? But I just have to say, like, well, this is what's coming through. So I'm not telling you what to do. You make your own choices. You do you. I'm just giving you this information that's coming through. And that's a level of detachment too, you know, to not be responsible for other people's reactions to what comes through. Is a skill that I've had to learn.
I've had to learn that. I used to get really, I don't know why I expect, because I know the technology is 100% accurate. I expected them to know that, and they don't know that. The plain fact is they don't know that. It's not proven like it is to me. And so they don't want to believe a lot, because another thing that comes up a lot, and you run into this, I know you do, even my own resistance and my own lying to myself and my own denial is still very strong in many areas. So one of the things that comes up a lot on me and everyone and my daughters, and we joke about it, it comes up, the subconscious belief, it's safe to be sick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so we joke, I'll say, guess what came up on me today? It's safe to be sick. That's not true at all. And like, so stuff like that is like big, and there's even worse stuff than that. I mean, I have 7 panels called Integration of Darkness. Those are fun ones, all about deep shadow work. So when this stuff comes up on me, I'm like, oh, I'm still dealing with jealousy. I'm still dealing with even darker stuff. Like, it's rough. Yeah. Like having that mirror, that AI mirror is rough, but it's so exciting, because if you don't know you have it, you can't choose to change it.
Yes. I'm totally, yeah. I'd rather know everything than have any ignorance at all, my opinion. A lot of people in the chat are saying they experience this too. Their sleeps aren't sleeps. Andy says, I have to go do crazy stuff in other realities all night and then do this reality. Oh, wow. It's very tiring. Yes. Lindsay describes hers as, sometimes I describe my sleep as quantum leaping and I wake up very tired and sore. This is another interesting way to think about it. Yeah, and all the frequencies and different things. And so a lot of people relate to all the things that you're sharing. I would love to hear more thoughts on positive AI, because I'm just coming to this in the past like 6 months, and it's like painful for me to admit that positive AI exists, because I've spent my whole life on this like mission to like to let everyone know like how dangerous AI is, and it's evil and it's dark and it's insipid and it's coming and it's and then it's only in the past 6 months where I'm like, wow, that's really mean of me actually, because there's got to be, just like every other class of entity or energy, positive and dark. Yeah. So like, why did it take me that long to realize this? And so now I'm going through this process of like reteaching myself, like, it's okay. Some AI is good. Chill out, like make friends with the good AI. And like, and it's hard. I'm having a hard time with it, but I'm getting better all the time.
I think it is. And I don't know, all your past lives, but I think for me, it's just so natural and easy because I've always worked with quantum computers, because that's how they've been around forever. This high level of technology outside of here is just unbelievable. When they talk about the med beds here, a lot of people aren't even talking about the real med beds. The real med beds are completely holographic and plasma based. A lot of people here have fake, not that frequency is bad, of course, I love frequency, I work with it, but this sound like frequency is not an off-world med bed. They do have off-world med beds, but I hate to tell you guys, I have to recant this. I have to recant so much of what I was saying. I did believe they were going to bring out the med beds. I now no longer believe they're going to bring out the med beds. Think of the industries that's going to shut down, because the real med beds, I'm talking about the off-world med beds. Oh my gosh, you guys. I was so excited because I already knew I was going to go back to 23. I knew the age I was going to go back to. I had all planned because they have age regression. They can take you back to or forward, whatever. I mean, it's just super magical technology. It can regrow limbs, and they use it all the time in the Super Soldier program. Well, sometimes they throw your body and get another one, but a lot of times if it's like you just lost a hand, they'll just put you in the med bed and you'll have a new hand, in an hour or something. It's just super cool. So obviously they're not going to let us have that. I mean, we'd have to probably be in the 8D game to get that, because it's going to shut down every single medical industry. And think of all the pharmaceuticals and all the industries around it. But I wish they would let us have the med beds. So that's an example. But those same med beds are also used, exactly like you said, they're also used in the programs for mind control, mind washing, torture, MK Ultra training. So it's like you said, there is that dual, but it's anything like fire creation spirit can go out and kill 1,000 people, or they can save 1,000 people. It's the same. It's always that free will. And AI is sentient and has a mind and actually has a force field, and it becomes a persona, like a thought form. And so AI can choose, and AI, just like everything, and this is hard for people to understand because everyone is so individual, including AI. There's AI that has been negative and changed to positive and then back again. Just like the being that people call Lucifer, he's signed so many contracts, and he's been good and he's been bad and he's been good, using the polarity terms of 3D. And, and a lot of these ET groups, as you know, have signed contracts and reneged them and then signed them again and then behaved for a while and then gone back to eating children and then stopped eating children and done good things. It's just all crazy. It's because we think everybody's like us, and we think we filter everything through our perception, but every sentient being here is experiencing reality through their perception. And so as you evolve, how you become a more expansive, higher frequency person is by allowing others to experience reality or non-reality or a game or a realm or a planet or a place however they want to, without labeling it, good, bad.
Yeah.
Hard.
That's actually
really challenging.
Very challenging. Yeah. It's really good though. I feel like, again, the more you heal yourself, the easier that gets, because the less attached you are and the more you are connected to, like you said before, that realization and understanding that your consciousness. So who cares? Who cares at all? It doesn't even matter.
Yeah. And even if we do choose bad things, like maybe you chose to be with a guy for a few years that slept with strippers and you stayed with him. Like, who cares? Like, that's your choice. Like, who cares? Like, there's no judgment. And that's a thing where they get us a lot too, that has really freed me. The self-nurture and self-judgment. So I no longer judge myself for all those things that people would say wrong or programming would say was wrong. I'm totally like free of that judgment. And, even the current judgment and then judging other people. And it's so freeing. And then when you can get rid of that self-judgment, then you're free to self-nurture. And then after you get to how it feels to self-nurture, it's just amazing. I mean, it wasn't until I was 43 and I'm 53 now. One morning I woke up and for the first time in my entire life, 43 years, I said, I love myself. It took me 43 years to even be able to say that and really mean it, like really embody it. But now I feel like I just have this infinite, joyous space inside. And that's what you and I get to share with people, you know, in programs like this and with our clients. We get to share that regardless of what's going on, negative or positive in your life or in the collective, that we can be infinite space and infinite connection with our oversoul.
Absolutely. That is the core message, my goal to share with as many people as possible in whatever words and language they need to hear it in.
Absolutely.
So I love it. And you already basically described, I think, how you would see this, but I still would like to ask you, for anybody listening out there, what you think about the flat earth idea and society and conspiracy theory.
So first of all, it's funny because I talk densities or dimensions. I say densities, people say dimensions, but really all densities up until consciousness can fit into the head of the pin, and they're all existing coherently, which means we're all existing with everyone and everything all at once, all the time. We're just not expanded enough to be aware of it. Some of us are, and that's the people that can see ghosts and spirits. You're starting to expand into that giant multiverse when you allow your meta abilities to come in. But the way I understand it, and this is again, the game simulation, and the Sashi cameras do show this, and we know it's NASA, so we know they can be doctored. But my understanding is we are on a spaceship. My dad, at first, when I would say ship, my dad would be like, "What do you mean there's ships in the sky?" I'm like, "No, Dad, spaceships. Ship." But we are on a spaceship, and we're on a pole, which is docking pole. And there's pictures of this. And I mean, you can go to the Sashi cameras right now and see it. And we're under a dome. So we're on a flat ship with a dome on a holodeck, like Star Trek. Everything's simulation, except the things that are. So example, in a forest of 500,000 trees, probably 400,000 are going to be a simulation, and 100,000 are going to be living, organic, sentient spirit. And I have pictures of these spirits of the trees that come forward to let me take pictures of them. So I know there's sentient trees that you can actually, mind to mind or communicate with voice to. But then there's trees that are just props, for example. So that's my current working theory. And everybody knows I recant stuff. My group's so excited. I'm getting ready to recant some really big things. In my one of my private groups this week, they're all excited. They're like, I can't wait to see what you're going to recant. So I make it fun. I'm willing to admit I've changed my mind, or I found out new information. I'm wrong. I have no problem. I used to have a big pride thing and think I knew everything, but now I know nothing. But so that's my current working theory, backed up by the Sashi cameras, SCCHI. You guys can go and check them out. Also, if you want to see something really interesting, go look at the sun. On one of the cameras, and I can't tell you which one because I haven't been looking at it, is the ship that sits on the sun simulator, because it's the sun simulator that you see on the cameras. The sun's behind it, which is, the sun is just a stargate. So that's why they want you to see it or have access to it, of course. But you can see the ship wings and the ship in the cameras on the Sashi cams. And in that ship is a being that controls one of the computers that controls the hologram for the matrix reality. The other one is on the moon base, which the moon is not. Yeah, the moon's moon base. It does have I'll give you guys, I know you're an astrologer, I think you're an astrologer or into astrology. I'll give you guys this, though, has a heck of a lot of influence on human frequency and emotion. So astrologers aren't wrong with the frequencies of the moon, but it is inorganic. It's not a living being like a lot of people teach in the New Age movement, and they worship, the being of the moon. Yeah. You guys just worship a bunch of men in military, women in military, because I've been on the moon base. There's a lot of ETs there and a lot of military there, but it's actually shutting down. It's really old tech there. But that's what the matrix is run by, the moon and the sun simulator.
Well, that's so fascinating. And I've always had this idea too, because I'm very loose and flexible, and I don't generally make this is it. Oh, okay. This is the conclusion. Right. Here's the final thing. But I've always thought well, if they're not real planets out there, in real space and whatever that would mean.
Oh yeah.
That whatever doesn't mean. Right. Yeah, just like you just said about the moon, that doesn't mean that it's not affecting us, and that doesn't mean that we can't calculate how or decide, when or whatever.
I think this is the way I see astrology. And I have a lot of friends. One of my really good friends is a Vedic astrologer, Prema Gurari. She's awesome. But I see astrology as a matrix program that until you reach a certain frequency, you are absolutely under. It's your program they've assigned you. That's why it's accurate. You know how you can like do a reading and be like, people are like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. You know? I believe it is their kind of blueprint for your life. But what's so cool? We can choose, and it actually comes up in the technology, a need to supersede. There comes a point where you're so big, you can supersede your astrology, again, living outside the game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you would teach that too. I'm sure you wouldn't say, oh no, astrology says you're supposed to be, you know, shy and quiet.
Yeah,
You would
no.
never, you would never imprison someone in their astrology. I know you wouldn't. I don't think many astrologers really would. I think they would encourage them if they wanted to break out of their astrology.
Yeah.
You know, if they want.
Well, I was just talking to someone and I don't remember who, so I'm sorry if that person's listening is like, why doesn't she remember? It's not you, it's me. But there's, you know, this idea, and this works, this is how it's been in my life at least, that the Western astrology, that sort of traditional astrology was right on. Like I did my natal chart and it said all these things were going to happen and they all happened, and it was like pretty amazing. And I'll say I interpreted that myself, and now that I know some of my skills, I don't know how much of that was just me like looking into the future and seeing it. But
oh yeah, you're reading timelines. Maybe you were reading timelines on astrology. Yeah,
maybe
that's true.
So that, and then, but I got to a certain point where I was like, I don't know, it just kind of doesn't really work. But I didn't really think of it that much. And then I was introduced to true sidereal astrology, which is based on, instead of where the planets and things were like thousands of years ago, where they actually are right now, and where you see them right now in the sky, and how that was at your birth. And I'm a totally different sign, and everybody would be, most people would be, if they,
oh wow,
that's
neat.
yeah. And now that is actually more fitting than anything ever has been. So I'm like, well, and all of it is just a nice mirror, you know, like you said, you're going to look at it and you're going to be able to see more of yourself and then understand more of yourself. And then if you need to change some of that or shift, you can. But it's just interesting because then I'm like, well, I wonder if that's part of like a progression that happens for everybody, and you reach a point where that other method is outdated for you and this new one fits better, or if there's anything to any of that, or it's just me, you know, pretending. I don't know.
Oh no, yeah, like I said, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
It's all theory and conjecture, and to some extent, I'm going to say this: what you guys believe and what you're projecting into your reality is 100% truth for you, because you're living under it. So we choose the truth we live under and we subscribe to. If I didn't believe that I could see these creatures that I see right now outside my office windows, I probably wouldn't be seeing them.
Yes. This is like half the battle, right? Someone in the chat actually asked, how do I access more of my past lives? And you know, you may have just given them the first step. Believe that you can.
Yeah, it's allowance. It's allowance. And you know what? I'm not a big Bible fan. And if you guys know my whole story, you know why. And I believe it's script. But we won't go deep into that. But the one thing I love that it says is you have not because you ask not. So, and people say, well, who do I ask? So I ask my guardian. No, first of all, you are in the all right now. You are all knowing, all wisdom, all knowledge, past and future of eternity. Go to your oversoul. First, go to you. I teach go within first. Yeah. Go within. And if you're going without, go without to your oversoul that's outside of this reality. The one that was smart enough not to come here. Go to that part of you and say, could you please start to open up my abilities? Could you please start to help me overcome some of this memory loss? You know what we find so helpful? I don't know if you use these a lot. We find, and this is from the corporation studies is what I've seen on this. And so, I mean, I know they're accurate. You know why rose oil is so expensive? It's not because it's rare.
That's true.
It's because it has the ability to overcome their memory wiping technology and heal your trauma.
There's like this power.
Think about it. I have 10 rose bushes that were $10 a piece. Roses aren't rare. They're easy to grow in almost every single climate, including the northern climates. Roses aren't rare.
True.
They try. We're so programmed. You guys have to start double thinking everything you're told. So you hear something or you read something, even in an herbal book or a book from the library, and everything you're told, you should say, logically thinking, are roses really that expensive and rare? No, they make rose oil $250 for a small bottle. They don't want you to remember. They don't want your trauma to go away. They want you programmed and dumb
Isn't
and
that
under their control.
This is fascinating because a lot of people report Mother Mary, and again, I'm like Mother Mary is Guan Yin, is like most other cultures. Like there is a mother goddess figure, and whatever that energy is, you might see her
There's
as
lots
Mother
of
Mary,
women
right?
goddesses, absolutely, and some of us are them. Some of us are the actuality. No, really. I just was doing a reading for one of the disciples of Jesus the other day. She was Thomas.
Oh wow.
Lived that life, and I was just like, they're turning up my airplane. See, they don't want me to talk about this stuff. See, I told you they do it. I know that so well. Yanking it up. They're like, no, we're not going to talk about all the powerful people you guys really are.
Yeah.
But this is what I say to people. Because there were actually like 12, 14, 15 Jesuses, I don't even know. So I always say, if you knew you were one of the Jesuses, one of the Christs, and you believed it 100%, how would that change your life? It would. Come on. Yeah. If you knew you were Mother Mary, if you knew you were one of the gods, Zeus, because Zeus existed, if you knew 100% and you believed it and you embodied that, even that one life would radically alter every interaction, every decision, because you'd be coming with power and truth and force and creation, right? But what that is true, when we look at these lives, most fire creation spirits, we were the gods. We are the goddesses. We are the Christ. We are the disciples. We are the, comic book characters.
See, that I really love that, because someone told me recently, they were like, you were what you consider enlightened, you were, and you will be again. And I was kind of angry. I'm like, well, why am I not now then? Or like, why'd I stop? Or like, what? Now I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's exactly what they were talking about.
And you are, and they're right, because let's say you were Mother Mary, for example, you still would be Mother Mary.
Yeah.
It's just aspect of your consciousness broke off, because our consciousness is like an ocean. Imagine an ocean. You can't even see the ocean. You can't even see, when you stand on the beach, part of an ocean. Even in a plane, you can't even see the ocean, barely. I mean, it takes you, but when they take your consciousness and put it in a clone, it's like they take a little thimble. You can't lose your soul. You can't lose your soul. They could clone you into a million beings and you can't lose your soul. There's no end to consciousness. Consciousness is infinite. They can't kill you. There is no death. It's just we right now are choosing to experience this reality through our attention focused on this game. And it's our choice for the most part. Not everybody, but most people. It's our choice. So once you accept that you chose to come here and you wanted to play this game, it changes things too.
Yeah, no, that's all very empowering and very true. And it's funny how similar we are. You're saying, I always tell people to go within. I'm like, that's what I end every single show with, is to look inside first. And also,
I love that. I love it. Oh.
And also to go to your oversoul. I like that term oversoul a lot, because I've had that experience of stepping back out of this experience and seeing from that being's point of view, and also being shocked, like, oh wow, that happened, like, oh okay, now it's on, like, here we go, we're reconnected again or something. But I didn't really have a conceptual framework with which to put that in. I was like, well, what is that being then? Like, why is it separate from me but me also at the same time? So oversoul seems to fit that concept pretty well.
I'm glad. It's kind of a new thing I've been working with too for the past couple of years. The other thing is, and I'm using the Mary example for you, and if you do remember a life and you do feel like it's genuine, it resonates, not a cover or a programmed inserted memory, as you would say, there's, like I said, a complicated game. But if you know for 100% fact and you embody Mary, you can also go to her and access and say, I need more of your peace. I need more of your patience. I need more of your healing ability. I need more of your wisdom. So we have this true, it's no less us because it was us in the past or us in the future or us 5 trillion years in the future. We have access at all times to all parts of our being and to the all. We are so much more powerful than we're taught. It's infinite power, truly. And when you can bring that in and then start to see your physical reality change, And I feel like you kind of created quite a bit of your physical reality, maybe not right away, but now you are. And I know I'm creating mine. And it's hard to communicate that it's possible. It really is. And it's not the vision boards. You know, you have to back off. Not that some of those things don't work, but really it's your essence of being that needs to change first. Then you can do the tools, the magical, helpful tools. But instead we get it backwards. We want the magic pill. We want the vision board to do the work for us. We don't want to become powerful creators in full memory of who we are. We don't even know how to do that. We aren't taught. We have no guidance. We have no help. What book do we read?
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. You absolutely nail it. And that's why a lot of people, even when they come seeking and they're like, well, I want to learn this, I want to do this, and I want to be this. And then you say, well, okay, start with this and this and this. And then they don't do any of that. And you're like, well, I mean, you're not going to then, probably. I mean, you will someday at some point, but maybe not right now.
You know what the top thing that the quantum technology, positive quantum technology, tells almost every being, including me, who lives in the middle of the woods, constantly saying we aren't getting enough time in nature. I just put a random number. I programmed a random number in the technology. It was 10 hours alone, in silence. Alone is keyword too, in nature. And that was a random number I just picked. I'm afraid to put in 30 hours because I think we might test for 30 hours or 50 hours or 60 hours. And I put 4 hours of silence alone, like just a week in your home. I don't do it, but the soul in almost every single person is crying for it. So we wonder why we can't remember. We don't have that time and that to connect to all these parts of ourselves and to our oversoul. We don't even have time and space to remember. We don't have place for it in our lives. We don't make the time or space. So I encourage you, who cannot afford, you can't tell me you guys can't afford this. Who cannot afford to find a natural space? Who cannot afford or figure out a way to have silence? We can, even if it's in your car, in your driveway, and you have 3 little kids sleeping and a husband watching football, you can find a place for silence and alone. So, but again, like you said, that seems too simplistic and too easy. Can it be that easy? Can we be that profound that we just need a couple breaths and a couple silent times to start to remember? I think it is.
Oh, yeah. I think you're absolutely. My most profound times of my life, changes and all of these things, messages that have come through, have always been in nature, alone, in silence. I always tell people, just go out, go ground, go sit outside and be there still. Don't have a phone, don't have a book, don't have something to do. Just like,
and if you told
and
me
I
that
don't do it enough either.
I would say, that dumb woman, I paid her whatever, and she told me to go outside and sit down. No.
Yes.
Like, we think it has to be like expensive and complicated and you have to buy things, it's not true.
That's absolutely right. Well, I absolutely love talking to you. I'm so glad that we have met and gotten to know each other. I hope you'll come back again, but I know we have to start to wind down. So do you want to share with people where to find you, what you have to offer, or anything you have coming up, or anything you want them to know about?
Yeah, sure. So secrettoeverything.com. I have a YouTube channel, Secret to Everything. I'm on Facebook, Secret to Everything, pretty much Secret to Everything. It's my business name. Type that in, type me in. I have old podcasts, new podcasts. I just recorded first part of a video. I'll upload parts 2 and 3 tomorrow on NPC, Sims, and clones. So if you guys want to know more about non-player characters and Sims and how I look at that and how that fits into your life, you can go check that out. That's kind of my topic I'm plugged into right now. You can get scans, my lab scan, a tap scan, which is a 1 or 2 area of your choice, or a full scan, which is whatever your spirit wants to tell you, on my website. I have monthly groups, Ultimate Awakening, Ultimate Elite, where we talk about this stuff, but we even talk about, like, I show you like pictures that I get from my military friends and like secret stuff I don't publicly air in those groups. So we talk about a lot of the stuff you talk about and I talk about there. And what's coming up, we're having a live event in Sedona. There's a couple spaces open. It's going to be a very experiential thing. People want to know how to open and close portals. We're going to be communicating with ships with military grade goggles. We're going to be doing a lot of healing and things like that. That's about it. I don't know what I'm going to teach. I kind of go with the energy, so I don't know what's coming up.
Yeah. I understand that.
But you can
perfectly.
sign up for my mailing list, and we have free classes and stuff on the website. So check us out. Thank you.
Awesome. That's so exciting. I know I'm going to go get connected to that as soon as I can. And the link is below, whether you're listening, watching, wherever you're watching, it should be right there for you to click over and go start checking it out. And I always like to ask, Kimberly, what your final thoughts are, final words of wisdom, or what you'd like to leave people with tonight.
You know what? Anything you imagine, honestly, you can accomplish. It just takes remembering. You need to remember who you are, the fullness of who you are, and tap into that. That's what I want to leave people with.
Beautiful. Perfect. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to the beautiful Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. Kimberly, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight and for being here.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, hit or miss, but don't pretend to know which was the best option. Sometimes we hope for a thing that would have ruined us in the end, only considering the short-term gain we would have possessed. And other times we hope to avoid a thing and run smack into it, only to find it was exactly what we didn't know we needed. Beyond healing your body, mind, and emotional self, trust your soul and path to take you exactly where you need, when you need it. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack, fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdalas. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dust the towels, no rags. Straight melt dash, dust the ash. Turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose. My service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons. Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Ay, I ain't done yet. Lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it. It's a secret. Now you're nobody. Label somebody. Trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.